The Chicago Bears are entering the NFL trade deadline as potential buyers, and it's not just speculation anymore. Reports from inside Halas Hall suggest head coach Ben Johnson and his staff are preparing to make a move. The trigger? A brutal wave of injuries that thinned out both the defensive line and cornerback groups, forcing the team to act before it's too late. The most devastating blow came this week when defensive end Dayo Odeyingbo was ruled out for the rest of the season after tearing his Achilles tendon. It's a heartbreaking development, especially after Odeyingbo had shown flashes of dominance earlier in the year. Sources confirm that the 26-year-old pass rusher, who was one of Chicago's major offseason additions, had not lived up to expectations statistically, but his presence was still vital to the unit's depth and leadership. Before the injury, Odeyingbo recorded 20 tackles, 8 sacks, and 3 quarterback hits, not quite the elite numbers fans hoped for after his big contract, but enough to prove he was a force on the edge. Unfortunately, the injury guarantees he'll remain on the roster next year with a hefty cap hit, leaving the Bears hoping for a full recovery and a strong 2026 comeback. Ben Johnson reportedly called the situation wild, frustrated by how the defense made progress at defensive end only to lose key players back-to-back. And the problems don't stop there. The secondary is also in shambles. Jermaine Johnson is nursing a serious injury that could sideline him for the rest of the year, though he's holding out hope for a late-season return. Kyler Gordon has landed on injured reserve for the second time, battling yet another leg injury. That leaves Tariq Stevenson as the top corner still standing, and while he's played solidly, it's clear the unit lacks both depth and consistency. One of the few bright spots came from the newly acquired C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who delivered a standout performance against the Bengals with 6 tackles and a sack. Still, behind him are mostly special teams contributors like Josh Blackwell, Jalen Jones, and Nickel Mulloud, not the kind of depth that can survive a playoff push. The reality is simple: the Bears need reinforcements, and they need them now. With the trade deadline approaching fast, Chicago's front office is scanning the market for defensive help. The focus, according to multiple sources, is on edge rushers, but cornerback remains a secondary priority. Here are the top names currently linked to the Bears. First up, Jermaine Johnson II of the New York Jets. At just 26 years old, the 6 feet 5 inches, 254-pound edge defender has already drawn praise for his athleticism and raw power. Though his numbers this year, 15 tackles, 1 sack, and 2 quarterback hits, don't jump off the page, scouts believe a change of scenery could unlock his potential. The Bears could likely acquire him for a 4th-round pick, and with his rookie contract still active, he'd be a cost-effective investment in the team's future. Next is the biggest financial gamble on the list: Bradley Chubb of the Miami Dolphins. The 2-time Pro Bowler brings proven production and veteran leadership, with 25 tackles and 4 sacks so far this year. But he also carries a massive contract and an injury history, including a torn ACL from the 2024 season. The Bears would need to juggle their salary cap to make it work, but Chubb's combination of size, 6 feet 4 inches, 268 pounds, and experience makes him an instant impact player if healthy. The third name under discussion is a familiar one: Matthew Judon, currently with Miami as well. A seasoned veteran and multi-time Pro Bowler, Judon has 25 tackles and 4 sacks this year, though age is catching up to him. At 33, he'd be more of a short-term rental than a long-term piece. Still, his leadership and experience could be invaluable in mentoring young players like Austin Booker. Speaking of Booker, his emergence as a young playmaker has been one of the few positives on defense this season. But he needs help on the other side of the line, and that's where Jacob Martin enters the conversation. Martin, who previously spent a year in Chicago, is now producing solid numbers in Washington: 22 tackles and 3.5 sacks on a 1-year deal. His familiarity with Chicago's defensive culture and locker room chemistry makes him a low-risk, high-reward option. At 29, he's still got fuel in the tank, and the price tag is friendly. And that brings us to perhaps the biggest headline name of them all: Trey Hendrickson. The Bengals' pass rusher has long been admired by Bears scouts, and after Chicago's win over Cincinnati, reports surfaced that the Bengals might be willing to listen to trade offers. Hendrickson, who once thrived under coach Dennis Allen, would be an instant plug-and-play fit for Chicago's defensive scheme. With 16 tackles, 4 sacks, and 31 pressures already this season, he remains one of the league's most disruptive forces. The only question is cost, both in salary and trade capital. But for a Bears team sitting at 5-3 and looking to make a playoff run, this could be the kind of move that changes the entire season. Before we continue with the final name on the list, if you're enjoying this breakdown and love getting in-depth Chicago Bears coverage, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. We post fresh updates, roster moves, and trade analysis every week, so if you want to stay ahead of the story, this is where you'll find it. Now, back to business. The last defensive name linked to Chicago isn't an edge rusher but a cornerback, and a very intriguing one at that. Tariq Woolen of the Seattle Seahawks has quietly been mentioned in trade circles. At 6 feet 4 inches and 210 pounds, he's got elite length and athleticism. A former Pro Bowler, Woolen made his name as a rookie in 2022 with 6 interceptions and 16 pass breakups. This year, his production has dipped, 19 tackles and 3 pass deflections, but his upside remains sky-high. He's still just 25, and with his contract expiring soon, Chicago could likely land him for a late-round pick. For a team desperate for secondary help, Woolen could be the perfect short-term patch with long-term potential. So here's where things stand. The Bears are buyers, that much is clear. The defense has been hit hard by injuries, and while young players have flashed, the depth simply isn't strong enough to survive a grueling stretch run. The loss of Dayo Odeyingbo is more than just a personnel issue, it's emotional. He was supposed to be a cornerstone of the defensive rebuild, and now his absence leaves a massive hole both on and off the field. The same goes for Jermaine Johnson and Kyler Gordon. Chicago has been forced to rely on backups and rotational players who were never meant to carry this kind of load. The question now becomes, who fits best? Jermaine Johnson too offers youth and upside. Bradley Chubb brings star power, if his health holds up. Judon gives leadership and playoff experience. Jacob Martin provides a familiar, affordable solution. Trey Hendrickson is the ultimate win-now acquisition. Tariq Woolen strengthens a battered secondary. Each option carries its own risks, but one thing is undeniable, the Bears can't stand still. This team has momentum, a strong locker room culture, and a chance to push for something special this season. Sitting on their hands would send the wrong message. It's rare to see Chicago in this position, competitive, confident, and aggressive. But that's exactly where they are under Ben Johnson's leadership. Whether it's a high-profile addition like Hendrickson or a calculated depth move like Martin, every signal from inside Halas Hall points to action. As the trade deadline clock ticks down, all eyes are on Chicago. The Bears have the cap space, the draft picks, and the motivation. The only question left, will they pull the trigger? Because if they do, this defense could transform overnight, from battered and thin to dangerous and complete. One move. One trade. That's all it might take. And for Bears fans everywhere, that wait could be over very, very soon.